Where should Covington go? I would like your guys' opinion. Like, who is it you'd like to see him fight? Does he need to just get a fight and all of a sudden this Michael Chiesa call out is making more sense? I mean, look at what happened to Colby in the last 3 days. Colby is being offered and is in training for Masvidal. That is a huge fight. Huge. All the storyline. Only question is the BMF belt going to be on the line? To paint a perspective for you guys how big this fight is, okay? If the BMF belt is not on the line, it is not a championship fight, and they were going to have it serve as a co-main. Some point in time, and I can't remember who the main event of this night was going to be. Possibly it was Usman and Burns. In fact, I think it was. So they're going to have Colby and Masvidal be the co-main, but because the fight was so big and because it was not going to headline, they were going to make a first ever exception to have a co-main event, non-title fight, go 5 rounds. That's how big that fight is so big they were going to make an exception to policy to make that a 5-round fight. That's a big fight. So imagine you're Colby. This is what you believe is going to happen. This is what you've told they're working on happening, and anything else they've ever told you they're working on ends up coming through, and you're in training for it. By the way, Colby versus Usman not only makes sense, it's always made sense. Colby Covington is the hardest fight Usman's ever had. Colby Covington is the closest fight Usman has ever had. Colby versus Usman, historically speaking, was so good and competitive and with a little controversy, if you guys remember the 5th round, that fight would have been rebooked and rematched and recommitted to at the press conference. But there was a rumor going around that Colby had broke his jaw during the fight. I am convinced the only reason Dana did not go to the press conference and say, we're going to do this again, we're just going to find a date, is because of the rumor. How do you book Colby with anybody if he has an injury that hasn't been assessed yet? I'm convinced of that. I really believe that. So Colby has 2 good options, right? And he likes both options. He wants the Masvidal fight. He wants the Usman fight. They're both champions. Great, go get it. Well, Usman calls out Masvidal. Masvidal accepts to Usman. We're hearing Ultimate Fighter. We're hearing those guys are tied up. Colby didn't just lose 1 fight. He lost 2. So what do you do if you're Colby? You see the spot he's in? You probably wake up today and go, oh, great, didn't see that coming. Not only did I lose, if I lost both my opponents? Okay. Well, you got, okay. But what do you do? Leon is saying he wants to fight Colby. Okay, fine. But Leon put himself in a bad spot. The only reason that Leon is in this spot of find me somebody, find me anybody is because he didn't fight anybody the last 15, 16 months that they were asking him to. I mean, in all fairness, that's what happened. I would love to see Colby, Leon go match up. I'm hearing something happened with Wonder Boy. I'm hearing somewhere Wonder Boy's off the table. He's hurt right now. Colby and T Wood already happened. I mean, right as you start to break it down, yeah, something that was not in Colby's plans is going to have to become Colby's plans. But I would love to hear from you guys. What is your opinion? And you don't have a ton of options right now. I mean, unless like a Nate or a Nick Diaz comes out of nowhere, there's not a ton of options right now. As you look around, you got this Leon business that's only a couple of weeks away, and you've got Colby was called out by Chiesa. So we could start at scratch and build something there. That's what I'm asking you. Where should we start? What do you want to see Covington do? Tell me. I'll tell Colby. I'll share your opinion with him. But as I look at that weight too, rankings came out today. Usman is now number 4 pound for pound. Usman being number 4 pound for pound, I have no problem with. But guess who was number 1? Khabib. Now, when I tell you that that's a little weird that Khabib, who has tried to remove himself in every possible fashion from this sport, is still sitting at number 1 of the rankings, when I tell you that's a little surprising, what I mean is really weird. What more does Khabib need to do? I'm just wondering, like, what more would he need to do? If Khabib was to come to me, for my opinion, hey, Chael, I want to retire. How do I do that? Do I need to march into HR? Do I need to fill out some forms? Is there somewhere online I say, no, Khabib, grab the microphone, tell everybody you're retired. That's how you do it. He did it, but we're not accepting it. And now the rankings aren't even accepting it. Khabib is number one. The rankings even have John Jones at number two, a guy who walked away from the sport, publicly told people, I don't even know if I'm coming back, gave a belt away, stayed in the pool. The only thing that John did to make anybody believe is he did stay in the pool. And I default back to the Jack Tunney days in the WWF. You must defend and or compete within a calendar year, or you are stripped and removed from your rankings. I go back to that. John hadn't fought in a year. Khabib says he's never fighting again. These guys are holding down 1 and 2. Do I need to tell you guys anything more? And by the way, I'm so happy we have a ranking system. I like that we have rankings. I like that I have a talking point for you now, but the entire reason the rankings were created was to have talking points. They were created for me. They were created for talking heads sitting in a chair in front of a camera. They were never created for the fighters to know. They were never for the fighters to use to negotiate, ever. That is an undesired and an unintended consequence of the rankings. So I'm using the rankings. I'm using it the way it was intended to be used, to have something to talk about. These other fighters are getting so close to their rankings, they don't want to compete with guys. What would you do if the champion did that? If the champion refused to fight anybody that wasn't in front of him, what would you do? One thing you wouldn't be doing is you wouldn't be fighting for championships.